Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. Good morning. This is the WRDN Morning Farm Report. I'm Brian Winnikins from World Dairy Expo. Thank you to our expo sponsors, including Wisconsin Soybean Marketing Board, Wisconsin Corn Growers Association, also Bauer Seeds and Service, UtterTech Cannabis Silo, and AMPI. And joining us is Sheryl Meshke, President and CEO of AMPI. And when we talked with Sheryl on Thursday of Expo, she was going to be part of a panel. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk a little bit about things going on with AMPI as well. And Sheryl, thanks for joining us. Well, you're on a panel today, and you're talking about what things are like for agriculture, specifically for dairy, in the first 250 days of the Trump administration. Obviously, tariffs has been a big deal, but you're talking about in that panel about how it's affecting AMPI. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to step back and do the real life look at tariffs. So though we're primarily a domestic company, selling about 95% of our products in our borders, we made a very pointed move in 2020 to grow that export portion, because we know about 18% of milk is leaving our borders, and we needed a piece of that growth. So that now is done primarily through our Portage, Wisconsin facility, and just down the road from World Dairy Expo, where we focused on value-added exports. So not the cheapest, but honing those relationships with countries and in-house distributors and in-market distributors. And so things like slice on slice, shred, and that consistent need that they will have for those value-added products.
And so the co-ops invested a lot of time, a lot of money to make these relationships. I would think that the co-op is a tad concerned about all these tariffs and trade wars popping up everywhere that could damage all of that time, money, and effort the co-op's done to try to build all of this stuff.
You know, we understand the need to level this trade playing field and really support that. But there's a real urgency to defining these relationships. We've, worked since 2020. Some have worked decades to build these trade relationships, and we just can't afford, the dairy farmer can't afford for those to be dismantled.
Talking with Sheryl Meshke this morning. She's president and CEO of AMPI. I had a chance to talk with Sheryl during the World Dairy Expo. And so along with that, another big part of the administration has been MAHA. And there's some opportunities here for dairy and for the co-op.
You know, there is. MAHA was once considered a marginal movement, and now polls are showing about 60% of Americans align with what it stands for. And you and I can think back to the 70s and the 80s when we were looking at Whole Foods movements, and then there was the Clean Label movement, and then the Let's Move agenda from the Obama administration. This MAHA movement seems to have some stability. And dairy aligns with most of the MAHA requirements of sorts. When you think of dairy products, I know at AMPI, clean label is a given. There's not artificial dyes. And this morning I heard that Walmart is making a pledge to redo its store brands to align with that MAHA movement by 2027. So I think this just really bodes well for dairy and the place that it can hold in the U.S. dairy nutritional diet.
One part of it may not be part of MAHA, but it's the whole milk act to get that back into schools. And that, on the surface of it, it seems pretty darn easy. Let's just do it. But wow. Didn't realize this was going to be a giant calculus problem that I probably am not going to figure out. It seems like it's just taking forever for this to go through.
Yeah, it is a giant math problem. And of course, it has everything to do with the federal policies of SNAP and WIC and school lunch. So we just need to keep pushing forward, because this generation of consumer needs to experience dairy products like we did, those that are full fat and taste so good and are nutritionally exactly what our kids need.
Talking with Sheryl Meshke, she is the president and CEO of AMPI. The other big topic, at least that's been going on for years, and this is it regards labeling, and soy juice is called soy milk, or almond juice is called almond milk, and FDA's own rules say you're not supposed to do that. And I mean, year after year after year after year, we can't, we got to stop this in Congress. And they bring in the FDA administrator, and and they keep looking at it. And it's like, wait a minute, if you're not going to follow, maybe that's why I can't be in charge of everything. I would be, if you're not going to follow your own rules, you get no money. We're just cutting you off until you start to follow your rules. This math problem makes the whole milk in schools problem look like first grade addition.
I think we got to move to the data. And as we've been, advocating for enforcement, that's all it is enforcement of the rules that exist. Look at the metrics. Dairy is absolutely, it's having a moment. And consumers are learning that the word milk stands for a nutritional package that can only be found in milk. And it took some time for that educational curve to be reached. But again, I think the data points to the fact consumers are going back to what they trust in, what they believe in, what's good.
Butter is one of those where everybody seems to be using butter now. And even on that topic, let's talk about Dinner Bell Creamery from AMPI. How it seems to be expanding throughout the upper Midwest with more and more stores.
So we have focused our Dinner Bell Creamery brand on butter, and then primarily the cheese that we export. So for instance, Dinner Bell Creamery brand admittedly would be better known in China than it might be here in the U.S. They use it for promotions there when they're tying American-made cheeses into American restaurants like Shake Shacks, etc. And their consumer wants that high-quality product. So a perfect way to showcase that with our Dinner Bell Creamery label, and then our Co-op Crafted Promise that goes along with that. So that's a little trademark insignia that is a snapshot of everything we represent. So the dairy farmer, the land, the water, the craftsmen who make the cheese, the butter, and then really the whole chain. So Dinner Bell Creamery and the Co-op Crafted Promise are what our farmer owners have a line behind. We are, however, continuing to be a very business-to-business focused cooperative, simply because of the quantity of cheese that we have. Some of the nation's most respected brands have the confidence to wrap themselves around our products.
I know. You mentioned the cheese. But with the butter from Dinner Bell Creamery, I've been at events, and it's a big buffet style, something like that, or everybody's being served. But in the table, the real small little single serve butters, and it's from Dinner Bell Creamery. So that's still another avenue, though. Here domestically, you've been able to expand that.
You bet. Some retail, primarily food service. Again, Dinner Bell has been primarily a food service brand, but you're right. That's something that's very visible. Cracker Barrel. You walk into Cracker Barrel, you're going to get Dinner Bell Creamery butter.
But there are grocery stores more and more here in the upper Midwest that are carrying it now.
You bet. So we've aligned with various distributors, and it's a way to, there's a lot of pride in grabbing that product.
Talking with Sheryl Meshke for AMPI this morning. I guess finally, before we go, yes, it's been a challenging year for the co-op, but give us some of the highlights of, we know about the milk price, but there's always highlights. Give us some highlights.
You bet. We're really looking forward to completing the rebuild of our Portage, Wisconsin cutting and wrapping and processing facility. That is a big investment that sustained a fire. And the significance of that is that it is our largest internal customer. So it uses a lot of cheese and adds value for our dairy farmer owners. So the rebuild of that facility will be complete at about year end. There's been a ramp up. So looking forward to that as far as a way again to not just market that commodity product, but to go those extra steps to ultimately reap that reward with the consumer.
Sheryl Meshke, she's president and CEO of AMPI. And from World Dairy Expo, I'm Brian Winnikins. This is the WRDN Morning Farm Report.